Ladies and gentlemen, I am Lady Lilith, and welcome to Eerie Embers. The Enfield Haunting. The rasping male voice reverberated through the room, sending an icy chill down the spine of all who listened. Hauntingly, it delivered a message from beyond the grave, detailing with gruesome clarity the very moment of death. Just before I died, it croaked, I went blind. Then I had a hemorrhage. I fell asleep, and I died in the chair in the corner downstairs. The eerie voice, which can still be heard on old crackling audio tapes, is said to belong to Bill Wilkins. This unsettling recording was made in Enfield, North London, in the 70s, several years after Wilkins had passed away. The disembodied voice carries the weight of the grave, its spectral tones a chilling reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Most horrifying of all, however, was the fact that the voice emanated from the body of an 11-year-old girl, Janet Hodgson. She seemed to be possessed by a malicious spirit. The sight was like something out of a scene from the film The Exorcist, but this was no fiction. This was chillingly, disturbingly real. Janet's innocent frame contorted with the unnatural presence within, as the guttural, rasping voice of Bill Wilkins spoke through her, leaving onlookers paralysed with terror. This was the infamous case of the Enfield poltergeist, an eerie phenomenon that held the nation spellbound nearly 50 years ago. It puzzled policemen, psychics, experts in the occult, and hardened reporters alike. The bizarre events that unfolded within the Hodgson household defied explanation, captivating and terrifying all who dared to investigate. It involved levitation, furniture being hurled through the air, and objects flying menacingly towards witnesses. Cold breezes swept through the rooms, physical assaults left marks on the living, unexplicable graffiti appeared on walls, and water mysteriously pooled on the floor. There were even claims of matches spontaneously bursting into flame. During these unsettling events of the 1970s, a policewoman signed an affidavit swearing that she had seen a chair move on its own. More than 30 witnesses attested to the strange and terrifying incidents that plagued the Hodgson home. Most inexplicably, the young girl at the centre of these events, Janet Hodgson, seemed to act as the mouthpiece for Bill Wilkins, a foul-mouthed, grumpy old man who had died in the house many years before. Speaking through Janet, his voice described intimate details of his life and death with eerie accuracy. To add to the chilling authenticity, Wilkins' son contacted investigators and confirmed the details of his father's story, leaving no doubt that something truly otherworldly was at play. The events unfolded over more than a year behind the door of an ordinary-looking, semi-detached council house on a suburban street filled with similar houses. These inexplicable occurrences left those they touched permanently scarred. Naturally, many questioned whether it was all a hoax, but no explanation other than the paranormal has ever been convincingly put forward. What exactly transpired in Enfield all those years ago? As for the Hodgsons, their whereabouts now remain a mystery. Have they managed to elude the ghosts of their pasts? Or are they the architects of an elaborate fabrication? As for 284 Green Street, who dwells there now remains unknown. perhaps haunted by the lingering echoes of a terrifying chapter of its history. The chilling tale, as recounted by the Hodgson family, unfolds in the year 1977. Peggy Hodgson stood out as an unusual figure for the era. A mother of 4 children, Margaret 12, Janet 11, Johnny 10 and Billy 7. Following her split from their father, after many heated arguments and instances of abuse, her husband departed abruptly. He left the house shortly after the family's arrival. It was the evening of August 30th, 1977, and Mrs. Hodgson was eager to settle her children into bed. She heard Janet complaining from upstairs that her and her brother's beds were wobbling. Dismissing it as childish antics, Mrs. Hodgson told her daughter to stop mucking around. However, the following evening brought an altogether more bizarre disturbance. Mrs. Hodgson heard a crash from upstairs. Irritated, she went to tell her children to settle down, unaware of the unsettling events that were about to unfold. Entering their bedroom, with Janet Starsky and Hutch posters on the wall, Mrs. Hodgson witnessed the surreal sight of the chest of drawers moving. Startled, she pushed it back, but her efforts were futile, as it continued to be propelled towards the door by an unseen force. It was as if some malicious presence, beyond the realms of the natural world, was attempting to trap the family in the room with a heavy oak chest. Janet recounted in the following years that it all started in the back bedroom. The chest of drawers moved, and you could hear shuffling. Mum said, "I want you to pack it in." We told her what was going on, and she came up to see for herself. She saw the chest of drawers moving, and when she tried to push it back, she couldn't. The memory of that harrowing night continued to linger. Janet's sister Margaret recounted how the eerie activity escalated. There were strange little noises in the house. You couldn't make out what was going on. None of us got any sleep. We put on our dressing gowns and our slippers, and we went next door to the neighbours. The family sought help from their neighbours Vic and Peggy Nottingham. Vic, a burly builder, bravely ventured into the Hodgsons' home to investigate. He went inside and he couldn't make out what these noises were. There was a knocking on the wall, in the bedroom, on the ceiling, and was beginning to get a bit frightened. The inexplicable phenomena was now not only terrorising the Hodgsons, but also unsettling those who dared to enter their haunted home. Margaret added further to Vic's experience. He said he didn't know what to do, and she'd never seen a big man like that looking so scared. The Hodgsons, desperate for answers, called the police, who found themselves equally perplexed. WPC Caroline Heaps bore witness to the inexplicable events firsthand. She recounted, "A large armchair moved, unassisted, 4 foot across the floor. Despite thorough inspection, she could find no logical explanation for what she had just witnessed, leaving the authorities baffled and the Hodgsons feeling more alone in their ordeal. Eventually the officers left, informing the family that the incidents were not a police matter, as they couldn't find anyone breaking the law. With no tangible explanation or resolution in sight, the Hodgsons were left to confront the chilling reality of their haunted home on their own. The BBC also attempted to investigate the phenomena, but their efforts were thwarted by the sinister forces at play. The crew discovered that the mental components of their tape equipment had been inexplicably twisted. The recordings were mysteriously erased, leaving them unable to document the haunting events unfolding within the Hodgson household. In some of the captured images from that time, Janet's face is contorted in agony, reflecting the torment she endured. Next, the Hodgson family sought assistance from the Society for Psychical Research, SPR. The organisation dispatched investigators Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair to delve into the chilling occurrences. Playfair, a poltergeist expert, became deeply involved in the case and later penned a book titled "This House is Haunted," chronicling the unsettling affair and shedding light on the inexplicable events that unfolded within the walls of the Hodgson home. The author Will Storr, whilst researching his book Will Storr vs. the Supernatural, had the opportunity to speak to Maurice Gross, who has since passed away. Gross shared his insights on the Enfield poltergeist case, emphasising its authenticity. He recalled, as soon as he got there, Gross realised that this case was real because the family was in a bad state. Everybody was in chaos. Gross's first-hand account provided further validation of the harrowing ordeal endured by the Hodgson family and reinforced the chilling reality of the events that transpired in their home. When he first got there, nothing happened for a while, Maurice Gross recounted. He then experienced Lego pieces and marbles flying across the room. And the extraordinary thing was that when he picked them up, they were hot. On another occasion at the home, he recounted, "I was standing in the kitchen and a t-shirt leapt off the table and flew into the other side of the room while I was standing by it." Gross's first-hand experience added a chilling layer of authenticity to the inexplicable phenomena witnessed within the Hodgson household, further deepening the mystery surrounding the Enfield poltergeist case. The investigators found themselves ensnared in a maelstrom of seemingly psychic activity, with every conceivable poltergeist trick being hurled at them. Sofas levitated, furniture spun wildly and was flung across the room, and the family members were violently hurled out of their beds at night. The relentless onslaught of the supernatural disturbances left no doubt about the malicious presence tormenting the Hodgson household. One day, Maurice and a visiting neighbour encountered one of the children shouting, "I can't move, it's holding my leg." To their horror, they had to wrestle the child free from what all involved insisted was the grip of invisible hands. This terrifying incident underscored the tangible, malicious force that seemed to have taken hold of the Hodgsons. The ongoing knocking was one of the most chilling aspects of the case. It would travel down the wall, fading in and out, as if playing an unnerving game with the family. This relentless and eerie phenomenon terrified them to the point that they all slept in the same room, with the light on, seeking comfort in their shared fear and the faint hope that together they might withstand this sinister presence haunting their home. Janet, who most of this sinister activity was focused on, would fall into violent trances that were awful to behold. On one occasion, the iron fireplace in her bedroom was wrenched from the wall with unseen forces, a terrifying demonstration of the power that seemed to focus itself on the young girl. Family members also claimed to have seen Janet levitating, floating clean across the room. She felt used by a force that nobody understands. She really didn't like to think about it too much, and she wasn't sure the poltergeist was truly evil. It was almost as if it wanted to be part of the family. Janet's reflection on the events added a haunting nuance to the bizarre and terrifying experiences that had left an indelible mark on her and her family. She didn't think he wanted to hurt them. It had died there and wanted to be at rest. The only way it could communicate was through her and her sister, Janet explained. However, some cast doubts on the events. 2 SPR experts observed the children bending spoons themselves and questioned why no one was allowed in the same room as Janet when she used her gruff voice, purportedly that of Bill Wilkins. These skeptical observations raised questions about the authenticity of the haunting, casting a shadow over the chilling tales from the Hodgson household. Indeed, Janet admitted that they had fabricated some of the occurrences. She told a news channel in 1980 that once or twice they faked the phenomena, just to see if Mr. Gross or Mr. Playfair would catch them. They always did. This revelation added a layer of complexity to the Enfield poltergeist case, suggesting that while some events might have been genuine, others were the result of youthful pranks, further blurring the line between the supernatural and the explainable. It was an extraordinary case, one of the most recognised cases of paranormal activity in the world. However, for Janet, it was quite daunting. She believed it really left its mark. The activities, the newspaper attention, the different people in and out of the house. It wasn't a normal childhood. The constant upheaval and the scrutiny deprived Janet of the peace and stability that should define one's early years, leaving an indelible impact on her life. Asked how much of the phenomena at Green Street was faked, she claimed it was 2%. She also admitted to playing with a Ouija board with her sister just before the activity flared up at the house. Janet revealed that she was unaware of going into trances until she was shown the pictures. Janet recalled of being very distressed by the photos when she was a child. She was very upset. These memories of her younger self, lost in a state she couldn't recall, added to the trauma of an already harrowing experience, painting a haunting picture of childhood overshadowed by supernatural occurrences. Janet recounted that she knew when the voices were happening, of course. It felt like something was behind her all the time. They did all sorts of tests, filling her mouth with water and so on, but the voices still came out. Despite attempts to rationalise or suppress the inexplicable phenomenon, the voices persisted, a constant reminder of the otherworldly forces that seemed to have taken a hold of her. Janet shared that it was hard. She had a short spell in Maudsley Psychiatric Hospital in London, where they stuck electrodes on her head, but the tests proved normal. Despite enduring invasive medical examinations, the results offered no explanation for the bizarre occurrences that she experienced, leaving Janet to grapple with the unsettling reality of her unexplained phenomena. The levitation she experienced was terrifying because she was unaware of where she would ultimately land, Janet recalled. The man who spoke through her, Bill, seemed angry because they were in his house, and on one occasion she remembered a curtain being wound tightly around her neck. She was screaming and terrified with fear. Her thought was that she was going to die. The terror of being at the mercy of unseen forces, subjected to physical harm, added to the trauma of an already bewildering and frightening ordeal. Her mother had to use all her physical strength to rip it away. The malicious presence seemed intent on inserting dominance over the Hodgson family, with Janet bearing the brunt of its wrath. The situation had a profound effect on the entire family. Janet was bullied at school, with other children calling her Ghost Girl, and would subject her to placing crane flies down her back. The relentless torment extended beyond the confines of their haunted home, permeating into Janet's daily life and compounding the trauma she endured. Janet confessed that she would dread going home. The front door would be open, there'd be people in and out, but she would never know what to expect. She held a great degree of concern for her mother. The constant upheaval and uncertainty at home took a toll on Janet and her family, leading to profound emotional and psychological distress, ultimately resulting in her mother's breakdown. Janet's sentiments echoed a common struggle with the past, a desire to move forward, tempered by lingering questions and moments of reflection. "I'm not one for living in the past," she admitted, her tone tinged with resignation. "I want to move on, but it does come to me now and again. In the quiet moments of solitude, memories resurfaced, invading her dreams and stirring emotions that are long thought buried. Why did it happen to us?" Janet wondered aloud, grappling with the unanswered question that haunted her thoughts. Despite her best efforts to leave the past behind, the spectre lingered, casting a shadow over her present and reminding her of the fragility of life and the mysteries of fate. And so, Janet wrestled the paradox of wanting to let go while simultaneously yearning for closure. A journey fraught with uncertainty, yet illuminated by the hope of finding peace amidst the echoes of the past. Janet herself experienced the harsh glare of the public scrutiny, appearing on the front page of the Daily Star with the headline proclaiming her as possessed by the devil. The relentless media attention and the social ostracization further compounded the trauma endured by the Hodgson family, leaving the scars that would last a lifetime. She left home at 16, marrying at a young age, and she lost touch with everything, including all the coverage of the case in the paranormal books. Janet recounted that her mother felt that people walked over her at the time, and she felt exploited. The aftermath of the haunting left Janet and her family also feeling isolated, seeking solace in forging their own paths away from the relentless scrutiny and sensationalism that surrounded their ordeal. Shortly after the press attention drifted away, tragedy struck the Hodgson family once more. Janet's younger brother Johnny succumbed to cancer at the tender age of 14. Janet's mother then battled breast cancer, ultimately passing away in 2003. To compound the family's grief, Janet suffered the devastating loss of her own son, who passed away in his sleep at the age of 18. The relentless onslaught of sorrow and loss cast a long shadow over Janet's life, further compounding the trauma she had endured since her childhood. Janet vehemently rejects any suggestion that the entire story was fabricated in the pursuit of fame or money. Despite the doubts of scrutiny cast upon their experiences, Janet maintains the authenticity of the haunting that plagued her family home, emphasizing the genuine trauma and suffering they endured as a result. Janet didn't want to bring it up again while her mother was alive, but now she wants to tell her story. She expressed, "I don't care whether people believe me or not. I went through this, and it was true." Janet's resolve to share her truth speaks to the deeply personal journey she has undertaken, reclaiming her narrative and asserting the reality of her experiences despite skepticism and doubt from others. When asked whether she believes if the house is still haunted, Janet reflects, years later, when Mum was alive, there was always a presence there, something watching over you. The Despite the passage of time, the lingering sense of the supernatural presence suggests that the haunting may have left an indelible mark on the house, its memory lingering long after the events themselves have faded into the past. As long as people don't meddle the way we did with Ouija boards, it's quite settled. It is a lot calmer than when I was a child. It is at rest, but it will always be there, Janet reflects. Despite the relative calmness that now envelops the house, the spectre of the past lingers. Janet reports that it was a priest's visit to Green Street that resulted in the incidents quieting down in the autumn of 1978, although the occurrences did not stop entirely. She recalls her mother continuing to hear noises in the house, suggesting that while the intensity of the phenomena may have lessened, the lingering presence of the supernatural endured, casting a haunting shadow. Janet reflects. Even her brother, until the day he left that place after her mother passed away, would say, "There's still something there. You feel like you're being watched." Despite the passing years and changes to their lives, the palpable sense of unease and feeling of being under scrutiny persisted. Janet's unwavering belief in the poltergeist revealed a deeper truth, a conviction born from her lived experiences and the unshakable sense that something beyond explanation had touched her life. "Call me mad if you like," she asserted, her voice steady despite the skepticism that surrounded her beliefs. Those events did happen. To Janet, the poltergeist wasn't merely a fragment of imagination or a trick of the mind. It was a presence, an entity that fed off of her energy and left its mark on her life in ways both seen and unseen. As for who lives at 284 Green Street now, that remains undisclosed. The house may hold its own secrets, but whether the current occupants are aware of the infamous past can be uncertain. After Peggy Hodgson passed away, Claire Bennett and her 4 sons moved into the house. Claire shared that she didn't see anything, but she felt deeply uncomfortable. There was definitely some kind of presence in the house, and always felt like someone was looking at her. Despite not witnessing any overt phenomenal activity, Claire's unease and sensation of being watched echo the experiences of previous occupants, suggesting that the haunting legacy of 284 Green Street may endure beyond its infamous past. Her sons would wake in the night, hearing people talking downstairs. Claire then found out about the house's history. Suddenly it all made sense. And then they moved out just 2 months later, their brief tenure in the house cut short by the unsettling realization of its haunted past and eerie experiences that followed. One of her sons recalled that the night before they moved out, he woke up and saw a man come into the room. He ran into Mother's room and said, "We've got to move," and we did the very next day. His chilling encounter with the apparition was the final straw and prompted their swift departure from the haunted house, leaving behind the eerie presence that had plagued their nights. The house is currently occupied by another family who wishes to remain anonymous. The mother simply states, "I've got children, and they don't know about it. I don't want to scare them." Despite any skepticism, the story of the Enfield poltergeist continues to hold a frightening power, its legacy enduring through generations, and casting a shadow over those who dare to dwell within its walls.